We finished on it, I think, last week, Romania, because there's so much going on there. But there's a few things going on, so I know that you're close to heart with them ones.
Yeah, and just not because I live here and because I think it's well, let's call it an example of what is already and what is going to happen in a lot of other countries. So it's not an isolated case. What happened is that, well, there were presidential elections in December. They were canceled because the guy who won, well, apparently was not someone out of the establishment. So they completely canceled the elections. Now they said they're going to be new elections in May, and they're trying to, well, cancel that candidate, so they don't want him to be participating in the elections in May. And what happened is this week they arrested him. They arrested the guy. They brought him in police. It was a whole day with the prosecutor and all kinds of charges. And I don't know, whatever. But in the end, he could face like 20 years in jail. So this is not child's spiel. It's really, really quite impactful. He's not allowed to leave the country. He's not allowed to use social media. So they're trying everything to boycott a person who, well, is just apparently, because everything what they do means that he get more votes, not less. It's like what they're doing, and so they asked for a huge protest in Bucharest, which is the capital in Romania, which was yesterday. And people say the numbers there were at least 300,000 people, Romanians, who say, hey, we want freedom. We want freedom to choose. We want democracy means that if we want that guy as a president, you shouldn't interfere. So this is happening right now. The demonstrations were yesterday. A really, really, really huge crowd. There were people coming from outside of Bucharest by buses early in the morning. Yeah, so the Romanians are not accepting this. So I hope that this will continue. But it's really, really crazy what's happening if you are a candidate and you get the most votes, and people try to put you in jail just because you're more popular than the establishment. But this is not only happening in Romania. Just like I said in my intro, there were this week protests in Greece, in Athens, Thessaloniki, which is, I think, the second largest city in Greece, about a train accident a year ago where 54, especially students, young people, died. And it was because the government did follow and did not follow EU guidelines. So that it's like they don't like the EU interference, and it created that things were going wrong with the railways, and it was the cause of death of these young people. There were also this week huge protests in Serbia, hundreds of thousands of people in the streets. Now you would say, well, this used to be the case when I grew up in the 60s and 70s. There were always protests, and whether blocking or boycotting companies and the unions and everything. But now, and for instance, if I read the official Dutch media, nothing is mentioned. And we're talking about millions and millions of people who are no longer accepting the EU. They're no longer accepting interference. They're no longer accepting taking their freedom away. But it's not mentioned. It's not mentioned at all. So that's why we mention it on this Sane and an Insane World. It's like, because you gotta know that these things are happening, and you gotta know it's not like, oh, this is not acceptable, but there are literally I'm talking combined about millions of people who are protesting and saying we're no longer accepting this. So that is a good thing. Is that people are not accepting this? It's not good that nobody writes about it in the mainstream media, which is totally crazy because we're not talking about a handful of people. It's like it's masses of people, yeah? And total different cultures. Yeah? Greece is different than Romania and Serbia. These things are happening as we speak.